then we can begin to make, the commission can make policy decisions on what we want to do.
Yeah, and this
Maybe
is,
we want more coast live oaks, but I doubt it. But,
Well, I mean, this
but
would-
now we have the data so we can make educated
yeah,
decisions.
this is pretty eye-opening,
Right.
how many, the species diversity.
Right.
But I think we also spoke in that meeting in July about how that is part of what makes Carmel, part of its iconic beauty, right? Is that we have these cypress and these pines and these coastal live oaks, right?
I know, and it definitely is, and it's the pines too, but again, like, you know, my dad sat on the pitch canker task force in the 90s, and it was going to be the pine apocalypse, that they were all going to die, and luckily it hasn't. A lot of them have acquired
Yeah.
natural immunity, but if there is something worse that comes along, it leaves us then with nothing.
Exposed,
Yeah,
yeah.
exposed.
Is the species diversity public property or the whole city?
Public trees.
Public?
Yeah, this is just because they did not inventory
You said that, yeah.
private residence trees. This is just this is from their inventory that they just are finishing up right now.
But it's logical that the private wouldn't be too different than the public in this area.
Most likely, yeah.
I mean,
There were two other slides that we wanted to touch on. 3 slides.
it was an interesting meeting, you missed
This is
it.
this is the first of 4 parts of this item.
Yes.
I took a bunch of calls.
3 slides later, there is a slide called tree condition. This is pretty critical. This shows that 90% of the trees in the public rights of way are in good or fair condition. What about the other 10% on the following slide? Of the 10% of trees that are in poor or worse condition, almost 700 are categorized as poor, almost 100 is very poor, and 139 is dead. This is critical information for our city to know so that we can direct the resources that we have to be able to prioritize the important trees. And in the inventory that has been sent to us that we now have access to, we can click around to, every single one of those trees is identified individually. We can click to it, we can filter through them, we can see exactly where they are. So it's been important. So that was just a little snippet of the presentation that Davey had presented at the community workshop. Purpose of that, of course, was for not just commissioners and steering committee members, but the public alike to come receive the information and ask questions to Davey. And although Davey is here present with us, two of the same personnel who were there at that meeting, their purpose here this evening is actually to ask you questions. But before we move on to that, are there any additional questions from the commissioners before we get to that segment? Okay.
This comment that I have started to take a look at Boulders and Davis's, their plans that they have in place, and I really like where you're going with this in terms of really digging in deep so that we can come back to the table with something that's comprehensive like that. There's some great plans that are out there as good models for us.
Thank you. So moving on to the second portion of this, the stakeholder questionnaire. In June, the steering committee members, of course the 5 commissioners and the 5 resident committee members, they were sent a 10-question stakeholder survey to provide each of their individual inputs regarding their vision of the urban forest. That same questionnaire, it's attachment 2, the same questionnaire will be asked to the commissioners by Davey personnel shortly. So the purpose of Davey joining us this evening is for the commissioners to provide their collective input regarding each of those questions. So please feel free, as the Davey personnel ask those questions, of course feel free to discuss them amongst yourselves before providing collective input from the commissioners. So I will pass this off to 2 of the Davey personnel, Tina McKeon and Allison Steer, who are joining us, and respectively they also happen to have let's see, Tina McKeon is a board certified master arborist. Allison is an ISA certified arborist. And as the chairman just mentioned, they have consulted on several of these community-driven forestry master plans. So we're happy to have them with us this evening to continue this community engagement process. So with that, if we could head back to the Zoom realm and welcome Tina and Allison.
Thank you, Tom, for that introduction, and thank you, commissioners, for having us tonight. We look forward to your responses to our questions. We are going to skip over a few of the questions, mostly the ones about you personally, and get to the more collective questions of interest. Beginning with, what do you perceive to be the biggest threat to the urban forest in Carmel?
I think
What is the point?
we,
I think if I understood it right, we're looking for a collective answer. Is that correct?
so
Yes, the intention is to discuss the question, come to a somewhat collective answer, provide an answer on behalf of the commission to Davey for each of these
So is
questions.
she
Tom,
going
I-
down the questions?
I have
The
a
questions are on
Yes, this page right here.
attachment 2.
Oh, but we already turned our stuff in on that.
Right, but they're looking for a collective, like, we know the individual, but now
There wasn't 100%
Turnout.
participation.
100% participation rate, so this might be an opportunity for people to provide their.
I did it
their
twice,
answers for
right,
the first
Allison?
time.
So I have a question, just process, I'm just asking process-wise, because it's 6, I mean, we could easily spend an hour just on this topic with the group. Outside of this meeting, we're not allowed to email each other and talk correctly?
I believe per the Brown Act, there can
We'd
certainly
have to-
be a steering committee meeting for whatever you determine that there would need to be a meeting for. We don't want to dictate when those meetings have to happen, but yes, I believe that the proper way to go about that would be to have a meeting so that could be discussed.
Right, the commission is appointed by council, and the commission appoint or selected the steering committee members. So the Brown Act applies for all 10 members.
We can do this. We're not going to do attachment number
Okay.
3, though, are we? All those questions?
Yeah, that's
We
the
can
problem.
cover it. I'm certainly not forcing the hand of anybody else.
Oh, no. Was that the intention
That was
for
the intent, yes.
the attachment number 3? We're also going to come up with collective answers?
Well, the questions
Tonight?
have, just getting a little bit ahead here, the question, there are 20 questions, 51 questions were submitted. We whittled them down, combined common questions, eliminated ones that actually, whose data would not directly inform the urban forest master plan, considered that response rates significantly drop if surveys are over 10 minutes in length. But the whole intention is to have the survey finalized, ideally this evening, but if I'm not pushing that myself, but the idea is to finalize those and receive direction regarding the date that should be published, the final wording on everything, the formatting of it, all of that.
But
I'm
let me
just
go back-
wondering if we should have like a separate, I'm just wondering if we should, I think it deserves proper attention is where this is coming from. And I just feel like these questions that were submitted on the Google form, as well as the next attachment 3, really deserve proper consideration and attention. So I'm just wondering, rather than trying to rush through them, if we should have a steering committee meeting just on those 2 topics with
Especially
you.
after we've met for 3 hours and, yeah.
And if I may, just one kind of a logistical, bit of a logistical matter is that per the agreement that we signed with Davey, they did say that they would come to, I believe it was 2 Forest and Beach meetings. So we
Here we are.
we do kind of have them here now. Regarding the stakeholder survey, I certainly do not want anything to be rushed. This is a master plan that will guide the city's urban forest for 40 years.
Yep.
One day is not, a small time frame is not going to.
They don't have to come to the steering committee meeting. I mean, this is us giving them input on our thoughts, right? So I just think that I'm concerned about a proper attention being put on something that's so important to our city.
So,
That's all.
Mr. Chair, go ahead.
Oh, I just had a question. I'm not sure, Tom, if you can answer it or if Allison can. For those of us who turned this in, is there any way that you can resend us that information? Because I know I did sign up so that I wouldn't lose it, but now I've submitted it, so I don't know if it's gone, but that would be easy for those of us who've already taken the time to work on it, if we could access it and refer to it. Is that possible right now? Are you able to look at who's submitted and send us back our answers, just so we can actually,
Actually, they'll all be on a Google Sheet, all of them. So we could, looking at all of them would be helpful for the steering
That would
committee.
be great.
I know that they do retain the
Right.
answers to
Yeah.
those that are
So
submitted.
Maybe we need a separate meeting just for these two items.
And in fact, it might be, I know that we have several of the other 5 steering committee members present either online or in person. And that might be a good opportunity, if there is a separate meeting to, to have everyone at the table, so to speak.
Yeah.
But that's entirely to your direction, and we would
I
welcome.
think that'd work better.
What's everybody doing tomorrow night?
Tomorrow?
Yeah. Right.
But tomorrow night we'll be on up to number 12.
I mean, we can certainly do it this evening. It's just, I think, well, okay, sir, I'm just saying, we have to be prepared.
Sarah's about to
Sorry.
recuse herself.
We just have to be prepared to stay. I think it would be
Concentration already.
inappropriate to shortchange the process, that's all, or shortchange the feedback, that's all.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes.
I would suggest, if you'd like to, consensus of the commission, we could punt this till next month and focus on the stakeholders survey and the community survey with the steering committee, the 10 of us, 10 of you. That's one option. Another option is we could potentially, depending on the availability, whatever, have a special meeting between now and next month.
Either one is okay with
So,
me.
we're looking for your guidance
Let's have
on.
a steering committee, a
Where-
separate meeting on these 2 topics with the steering committee.
Okay, so
Let's see, I'd like
Hopefully
to
before the
hear
next
from
meeting. We
the
can have all of
whole commission. So, Brian, where are you with this?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, fine with
Fine with
a
a separate
special?
meeting.
Okay,
Okay,
then Tamara the same, and Sarah, I heard you about 10 times, so.
all right, so we'll schedule a special meeting. We'll schedule a special meeting as soon as possible, and we'll send out a survey to make sure that, or not, I shouldn't call it a survey. We'll send out a questionnaire on availability, so we can get hopefully all 10 people and
Do you see the
available.
smile?
You know, Allison is so patient. She's been with us the entire meeting. I saw her. I think she was on tour with us at 2:30. So, do I need to make a formal statement, or are we good with the plan to?
No? No? Okay.
The steering committee and anybody in the public could also attend, correct?
If it's a public meeting, that is correct.
Yeah, so I just think particularly the woman who's still here in the back who spoke early this morning.
Ms. Billig?
Supported?
It's a lot.
Yesterday.
When we kicked off, to make sure that she knows when that meeting is. Yeah.
So that's
recent.
going to be attachment 2 and attachment 3. Those are the points in which we'll set up a special meeting to address those, make sure that we have a collective response for attachment 2, and then we're working through the wording on attachment 3. Is that correct?
Yes, you
Okay.
can add questions, eliminate questions. We want you to own this process. We fully believe in 10 extremely qualified, intelligent, folks who are on the steering committee, and we want you to, to utilize you for that. Yes. If I may.
Thanks for trying tonight.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome, Commissioner. If I may suggest one thing to cover in that meeting is at the end of it, if a date could be provided for the publishing date to be provided, just if you could just take into account, it does take just a couple of business days to go through the actual digital formatting of the survey, testing it, making sure that's good, printing out copies, having them available for folks who might want to do that. So just leaving a bit of leeway.
And how to distribute them.
Yeah, sure, yes,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
distribution plan, where people would turn them in, those kinds of things. We would love direction regarding that.
We have a post office.
It's pretty funny. I've been telling people, hey, just go on the website. You can take the survey.
No.
Not yet. Got it.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, this item had 4 parts.
That's okay.
Part 1 was about the status of the Urban Forest Master Plan and the highlight of the slides from the workshop. We did that. So we're going to have a special meeting for the stakeholders, questionnaire, and the community survey. The 4th part was mine. Just wanted to mention that attachment 5 in your packet, which we're going to briefly discuss here, if we want to discuss.
Let's discuss it.
Is attachment number 5. This was from the steering committee member, Linda Smith. So she provided information that's in attachment 5. She also provided additional supplemental information that's on your on the dais and also on the table for the members of the public. This is just information that does pertain quite a bit to the Urban Forest Master Plan. So it's just information. It wasn't any, unless Ms. Smith is here. Linda, I believe, is here. If you wanted to make a statement about to kind of summarize those attachments, we.
Linda, oh, there you go.
Like to do
Looks
that.
like she is. I think
Here
that
I
sounds like a
am.
great idea. Hello, Linda.
Hi. Yeah, I just provided information. I'm a representative of Monterey Pine Forest Watch, representing them on the steering committee. And as an old Carmelite whose family has been here since 1903, I just thought I had some information, scientific, that has been accumulated over the years during Monterey Pine Forest Watch's existence, and then family photos and et cetera of the forest, and some information from the past, from Carmel's past. So this is just for everybody's just edification and enjoyment. And so I like what you're saying. I think this supplemental meeting is going to be great.
Thank you, Linda, and thank you for the information.
Thanks.
Public comments for
There,
postponing having a separate meeting?
we could probably do that. We can throw that out there. Are there any public comments first in the chambers regarding the commission's decision to postpone the survey, collective answers / wording of the survey that will go out? Yes, if you'd like to make a comment, you can please come on up to the.
No,
Please, if you wouldn't mind, thank you.
Commissioners, Melanie Billig. I think it's really good that you're postponing this to take a further look at the questionnaire. I think you need, when you look at it, to make sure that the questions are such that if someone has next to no information, I mean scientific or otherwise information on the pine forest, that they can answer something and it can be valid. I mean, our pine forest is so special. There are only 5 places in the world where it grows indigenously, and ours is the most important. And so it's Ano Nuevo, Carmel, Monterey area, and then Cambria, and then 2 little islands down off of Baja. I don't know if you're aware of that. And these are the only special places where the forest grows. And because of the continental plate shift, that's why you've got a couple way down south in Baja. And most people in this community don't understand the tremendous importance of this forest, not only for our particular environment, but just because of its status. And I think that the questionnaire ought to show that, or try to find out, the level of understanding that people have, because you can make all kinds of just off-the-cuff comments in a survey and lead to some very important decision-making that might not be appropriate for here, or may be very appropriate. And my feeling is that most of the people that live in this town really don't understand what this forest is and has been. I mean, this whole area in the 17th century was covered with Monterey pines and oaks. That's the basis of it, all along these areas that I've mentioned to you. And the forest comes back and it goes away, and it's all related to climatic conditions. We've been in a very stressful drought period here, and that kind of drought has not existed for 1,200 years. So I think we need to be very careful and mindful of what we're suggesting in this master plan, and not be leading people in the questionnaire, because questionnaires are very difficult to craft. Anyone who's tried to do one scientifically knows that for a fact. So I would just plead for some sensitivity and maybe doing some public education as well, so people can answer these questions in a truly meaningful and educated way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Melanie. Appreciate that. Okay, so let's see. What else do we have to do? Have a few more things.
5 more things.
And
Went from morning to
here we go.
afternoon to evening.
Oh, sorry. Another public comment?
Yes, please.
Oh, please. I didn't close it, so you got me.
Alan Wheat here, professional plant geek and professor. I see the state of the forest going through some really hard times. We've had very drought years, windstorms. We've had replanting in the past, but you know, we got utility lines and a lot of other obstacles. I would like to see planting done correctly in this new plan, and that you incorporate the forest as friends, the plant community, with these trees. These trees grow around their neighbors and they're their friends. These plant communities are repeatable assemblages of plants together that form a plant community, and they can't be healthy without each other. And it's not about a pine next to a sidewalk or a house or this or that. It's the whole environment. With the oaks, we have oak root fungus all over town. You know, we didn't know much back when we started here, and everybody had gardens and watered too much, and we have a lot of decaying oaks in that, from that. From the horticulturist, arborist kind of vision, I always try and protect the healthy trees. And I see a lot of sick trees right next to healthy trees. And we all love the trees. I love the trees. You know, we want to preserve the forest for the future. We need a younger generation, and we need to manage the weak, because we're not going to let a fire do it. We don't want a fire to do it. We don't want them to fall down. So there needs to be some part of action into this plan. Okay. Thank you.
Great, thank you. If there's no more public comment, I'm going to go ahead and close public comments, and we'll move on in our orders of business. Looks like what we've got up next is the Ocean Avenue Median Islands Landscaping Design Alternatives. So who's leading that off? Okay, perfect. All right, over to our forester.
Can we get the,
Oh, actually, I was going to lead it. I was going to kick it off.
okay.
Remember? No?
Yes.
In our little practice run. Okay, I was going to kick this off. All right. Mr. Chair, members of the commission. All right, so we're going to be presenting 3 design options for the Ocean Avenue Median landscaping. Options 1, 2, 3. Options 1 is going to be a recap of the island, the pilot project that was done at, between Monteverdi and Lincoln, that the commission approved that design back in 2022, February 2022. Option 2 was submitted by one of our city council members. It goes back to the original landscape design when the meeting islands were created with the, I guess, Carmel stone wall planters. And then option 3, it will be presented by Carmel Cares and Professor Wheat, and it's I'll call it an embellishment of the first design number 1 with a lot of enhancements. So Justin's going to present options 1 and 2. We'll turn it over to Carmel Cares and Professor Wheat to talk about design option 3. We'd like to suggest that you hold questions if you can until all 3 are presented, and then we'll go for there. And then we're seeking. Well, the recommendation is to receive the presentations, so you can listen to the 3 options, and then provide direction to staff. Do you want to pursue one of these options? Do you want us to go back with additional options? So the ball's in your court as to where we go from here. Okay, so that's the introduction. Over to Justin to go over 1 and 2.
All right, commissioners. So this is a project that was started back in late 2021 with the previous forester. We have the 5 meeting islands that go from Monteverde up to Junipero, and in it says late 2021. I don't know the exact date. A pilot island was done at the very westmost, starting at Monteverde, where this new plan was implemented and then brought to Forest and Beach Commission in February of the next year for you guys to assess and give your feedback on. I have, sorry, the presentation from the previous forester that I'll be going over just to touch on what we've done and what we can do going forward with the tweaks you asked for. And then more recently, one of our city council members have found the original plans from 1938 from a prominent landscape architect, Thomas Church, and I will be presenting those because the council member asked, well, what about these? So we're going to ask for you to consider them as well, just to look at them and see what you think. And then after I present 1 and 2, Mr. Dale Byrne from Carmel Cares will present his version, his option 3, which is really a tweaked version of option 1 with a few different 2 variations, kind of after seeing what has or hasn't worked with the pilot island. There we go. Okay, so this started out as a kind of looking at the downtown, wanting to make the beautification of the kind of neglected islands more of a priority. So this, as I said before, this pilot island was put in place, but only 1 has been done so far. The other 4 have the remaining plants and infrastructure. So not only was the understory overhauled, also new irrigation boxes, timers, valves were all installed, because the current irrigation on the rest of the islands is approaching 30 years old. And talking to my landscape technician, it's hit or miss, a lot of fixes, a lot of, it only lasts so long, and really once it gets to an age, you're just doing so many fixes, it's really not worth the time and effort. The plan was to work with the existing native plants and trees native trees we have that are there, the oaks, the pines, the cypresses, and then some lower growing woody shrubs like toyon, manzanita, ceanothus, shrubby trees, and then plant some new plants to get some some color, some flowers, and to provide more visual pop and also attract beneficial insects to the rest of the understory. Here's some examples of the existing and proposed trees. The Monterey pine on the left, coast live oak, ceanothus, also called blue blossom, toyon, and then the Monterey cypress. And then here are examples of some of the proposed plants and flowers. You see a varying palette of colors and statures, not only just of the leaf color, leaf shape, flower color, and overall shape and stature of the plants. Herbaceous perennial, and then this is the idea was to have a year-round bloom, so it would be changing throughout the seasons, so it would change and evolve throughout the year and be kind of a neat thing to complement the trees. So this is the installation of the pilot island. You'll note that the mature trees were kept, and then the new understory was re-landscaped and new irrigation installed. So part of the plan, I don't know if it was this or with the additional comments from the commission, was we needed the plan was nice with the flowers, but we needed more to deter people crossing over the busy street and going in between blocks. So large shrubs and boulders were proposed to add to an addition to the original plan. Also, big pops of color were presented by the CRA, and possible different fences or to go down the middle, but I think eventually the boulders and large shrubs were chosen. The pilot island cost less than $10,000, but there's still 4 more to go. So the cost, we estimate around $50,000, just conservatively, with the fact that we still have 4 irrigation control boxes, so 1 for each remaining island, plus the valves and lengths of this irrigation netafim pipe tubing. So we have that part. We just need the supplemental irrigation pieces and the labor and the plants. So this was the original presentation. Thanks people in town and Carmel Cares and city staff. Here was the original staff report, which I think we kind of covered in the presentation. So then here, this is Thomas Church's historic landscape plans. You can read this in your packet. Really, it's more background on him. He was a prominent landscape architect in the early 20th century. Out of San Francisco, did a lot of work down here on Scenic Avenue. He landscaped the Frank Lloyd Wright House on Carmel Point and some other really well-known houses on Scenic Avenue. His original plan, which was kind of interesting, didn't call for any color in the islands. It was the existing native trees, the pines and the oaks, with a low-growing, kind of compact dwarf juniper shrub, and then it would be a forest within the forest is what he said, of an extension of the forest in the median islands, with the flowers being against the natural buildings along the road. Some renderings of what it would have looked like back in, I don't know, I can't date it from the cars, but a long time ago. So interesting to see what it used to look like. And then more of what Old Town Carmel looks like. And then the old blueprints, here are an example of his original plans, the actual blueprints. So you'll see the existing, he's the one that called out for the Carmel stone walls, and most of the islands are filled with this low-growing juniper tamaricifolia, which is the tam juniper, a low-growing shrub, which you see is in a lot of landscapes. Again, more of the blueprints with, you see the oaks and the pines not along scenic and in some of the islands. Continuing on with the and that's pretty much a overview of the 2022 and the 1936. Let me present Mr. Dale Byrne from Carmel Cares to talk about his revamped proposal.
Hi there. Thanks for having us tonight. It's been a long time coming, but we're here. We're ready to get going. So I think there's a little bit of confusion. It's partly because so much time has gone by. Sarah was involved and she's gone, and Justin's on board, which I'm very excited about. We've been having some good discussions. The way I see it, there's really just two plans here. There's the original plan that has enhancements, and that's what we're going to present. So if you combine 1 and 3, I think that's really your decision, because what he said was basically what we're going to propose, with just a slightly different plant selection and also a discussion about trees, which is an important issue. And so it's not really Carmel Cares. This is a combined, because we're a city support group, this is a city plan. Obviously, you can make some discussions about differences between 1 and 3, but I don't really see that there are 3 choices. There's 2. So I'm going to introduce Alan, because this is really a work product that he's been doing. The idea originally was that Alan was going to be retained by the city on a $3,000 contract. That never happened because Sarah ended up leaving in the middle of all that. We've covered $1,500 of that just to keep him going, because he's been delayed for about 5 months now. And I'd like to thank Alan for sticking with this, but I think it's going to be very exciting and it's going to be beautiful when it's finished. So I'm going to introduce Alan now to take it over. Thanks, Alan.
Tell me when to go down.
Let's just.
Or you just want to
No, this is good. This is good. So yeah, I did this original walk and reviewed with Sarah the version 1. And after the successful planting of the Forest Theater, Dale kind of wanted me to help him paint this a little bit with you guys. So our site analysis and priorities were safety concerns of pedestrians jaywalking and jumping over the medians, visibility for motorists, and this pertains to all the plant material used, color, flowering species at the ends that are perennial, less maintenance, maintain visibility from the opposite side of the street for business exposure, so you can see across the street, hey, there's the coffee shop, there's the gallery, etc. There's a lot of seasonal banners that go up, and those need to be visible and accessible. Many of the existing plants are old, past prime, or poor species selection. I would even say that into the pilot program. If you buy a California native plant, who's to say it's for this area? And like I talked about plant communities, we want to have the most site-specific species for Carmel. That should be here. Some tree work I think is necessary. Tree health and understory health would be incorporated in this plan. Some of the trees have some defects in them, and I've got other slides about that. So next, please. So the landscaping goals is to deter the jaywalking with boulders and plants. Using low growing, high color with long bloom periods. We need a long bloom period that attracts all the visitors to our city. Properly thin existing trees to allow filtered light into the understory. There's quite a bit of deadwood in some of them, especially some of the cypress. Plant selections that streamline maintenance. So, you know, if we're gonna do a pruning we can go down and prune them, and all the plants have the same water requirements, pruning requirements, and it's efficient and looks good. The plants in these beds need to be able to handle high soil temperatures because of those steep walls collecting radiant heat. The road's hot, there's exhaust. It's not an ideal place for a lot of things to grow. So we do have a lot of we have some good trees in there when we want to support them with their community and not impede their root systems with proper spacing and water usage. I've recommended basically all 100% local native plants for this project. So the pilot project did receive positive feedback. When I did my initial walk around, I was asking shop owners that would come out and, you know, what do they think of it? And they were very supportive of what I was envisioning. So let's just go on to the next. So, okay. We've all talked about that a couple times. So why should we be planting native plants? Well, they require less soil prep than traditional plantings, less water to establish, and little after being established. Benefit existing native pines and oaks by planting their natural neighbors. We're going to supply native birds and butterflies with larvae, nectar, seeds, and nesting materials out of this plant palette. Ocean Avenue connects to Forest Theater and the Mission Trails Natural Preserve habitat, planting to the North Dunes and scenic pathway habitats, establishing a consistent native corridor for wildlife and beauty. So we're making this pollinator pathway. Carmel is one of the most beautiful cities. Why not enhance it with the natural plants that should be here? We do that with our trees. This also, I think, really sets an example of plant community landscapes for residents and visitors and be an example for the world. Next, please. So wildlife corridors, this is really exciting. This provides transition zones for wildlife from one habitat to another. Wildlife corridors provide traveling avenues for wildlife species between two habitat areas. And as you can see in this image, you have the Mission Fields, you have the Forest Theater, and then we have that nice connector piece of Ocean Avenue, okay? As well as the North Dunes, and there's many actual native, there's a few that I've installed in little hot spots that are little landing pads. But if you're a migratory monarch butterfly and you're flying up Junipero or something and you hit the theater or the median and you find your favorite plants to feed on, well, you're just going to follow the breadcrumbs, and then maybe you'll end up at the North Dunes or you'll end up at the Forest Theater, and you start a family, you know? So that's right.
Raccoons just use the sidewalks.
Yeah, we use the sidewalks, but you know, yeah. So I really like to see this become a really biodiversity city and planting. And in the future, these large medians, easements, Forest Hill Park, and other places can be developed the same way. We basically have two plant communities. We have the Monterey Pine Forest and we have Oak Woodland. And they do this. There's no black and white. We're in a transitional zone as you come off the coast. So those two plant communities are moving in there, and that's what the plants I've selected from. Okay. This is kind of a simple, you know, thing Dale put up here. We have a great local boulder source, and putting these boulders in here, this doesn't really do it justice, but you can see the trees in there. Let's go to the next one. So these are South County boulders. They're amazing, dense. You can get them large. We can install them in all those problem areas, as well as make planting pockets so we have layers between our understory plants and our shrubs. So low vegetation for the median ends, so we maintain that visibility, and we have the attractiveness of the bookends of the intersections. Erigeron glaucus, that's our seaside daisy. Epilobium is blooming right now, that's red. And we have our wonderful California beach poppy, the Marinima. Yarrow is an excellent summer bloomer, long bloom period. Dudleya bretonii is this amazing succulent that grows in the cliffs. And we can have a few of those in there as specimens, and they receive quite well. So, Salvia leucophylla, Point Sal, right on the beach. That's our coastal bluff. Carex tumicola we see at the Forest Theater. It was there naturally, and we decided to plant some more and increase that population. And some of the most important plants in our coastline for our wildlife is Eriogonum rubescens and others, Latifolium and several others. Next, please. So here's a couple images, sample images of some of those species. Okay, the low-growing plants for layering in the boulder pockets and things. Calamagrostis nucanensis is a really important grass here. It only grows in Pebble Beach and areas along our drainages through the city. Okay, so we got to have some of that. Go back, please. Here. Arctostaphylos is our manzanitas. They're fantastic ground covers and mid growers, sprawling. They can cascade a little bit over the edge, but not. They really hug the walls, so they won't like impede cars or anything. But it'll add another layer of our plant material. Okay, and all these are attractive to butterflies and birds and all of our good pollinators. Okay, next. Then the larger shrubs that would be in those high jaywalking zones, Ribes sanguineum, some salvias, and the big volume guy would be probably the Rhamnus californica leatherleaf. That's our native coffeeberry. Okay. So here's a few images of those. The Ribes viburnifolium, that's actually just about extinct in the wild and only in cultivation, but it would have been all up and down our coastline. Okay. So I've seen some tree issues on Ocean Avenue. Many of the trees in the medians, coast redwood, there's oaks, there's cypress. With help with the city forester, I would like to make selections for removal of unhealthy trees to preserve the health of surrounding trees. All the Monterey cypress have cypress canker, which is a vascular tissue disease. This slows the growth and the canopy development, and eventually it becomes so inefficient the tree dies. These are mostly overcrowding young oaks that could be fantastic trees. A few trees, a few oaks have structural defects, are too close together, and have big wounds on them cut by trucks. You know, truck pruning is never recommended. So each of these trees, I think, should be analyzed to make them a good tree. I rate a tree as poor, fair, good. Good being good, fair being it could be good if it was done right, and poor is it's not going to ever be good. So.
You don't have very poor and dead?
Yeah, well, there's dead. That's the fourth stage. I've seen a lot of Monterey pines with red turpentine beetle. I mentioned that earlier. If you go to the next slide, this one in the middle here, there's tons of red turpentine beetle. That makes Swiss cheese right out of the crown. It makes it unstable, and it affects the vascular tissue getting nutrients out of storage up to the top of the canopy. This one also has included bark where it's not wood-to-wood contact, where they come down in a Y, and there's probably about this much of the base that's all bark in there. It's not wood to wood, so they could really easily go like this, and you know, failure on that would be catastrophic. I mean, who knows what it could be? It could be next week during car week, or it could be nobody there in the middle of the night. You just don't know. But eventually they will grow apart, or the crown will fracture or uproot from the beetle. So we should take a good look at those. Next, please. Left, this cypress has cypress canker. And on the right, this is a newly planted Monterey cypress on the sidewalk ends, but those should be looked at as well. I see a lot of the same issues. You can see a yellowish stain bark right there. And that's cypress canker attacking on a young tree. You usually get that from pruning when it's wet. I like it dry and preferably cold. So there's no cure for these, just preventative measures. Next.
So are you saying all the Monterey cypress on Ocean?
I wouldn't say all, but I think we need to really look at them. And if you're going to invest in a plan, you want it to last and it needs to function. So I don't want to put in a bunch of plants and then we got to take out a tree and take down a stone, or let's get a realistic idea of the health of these trees, because this is our cover page.
Is this contagious? Like, I mean, like some of the oaks, right? Like it can spread. So is this contagious to?
Water droplets that have the fungus, often an infected tree, like birds or pruning tools, can take it from tree to tree. It needs a wound as an entry point.
Okay.
Okay. So our next steps, work with Public Works, Forestry, as they develop a plan for that. Then we could actually come up with a detailed planting schedule. Are we removing trees? Are we planting more trees? Then we'll work down to the other species, develop a plan for that, and a quantity and a cost, and the boulder orders and placement of those type of things. Okay.
Thanks, Alan. Do you have some ideas around, in terms of what you're proposing, which I understand is an enhancement of something that we had, as a commission, had already put in plan in place, in terms of cost enhancements? Is there some thoughts around that? I mean, certainly, who can't not like the ideas?
And labor is often some of the most expensive. And having, Carmel Cares and other, volunteer professionals along with the city, I think we can keep that in that zone of 50-ish. How many boulders? Boulders take a lot, equipment takes a lot, but it's permanent. So I think that's in the ballpark, close.
Okay, thanks.
There's one slide missing, and you have this supplement piece in your packet, I hope. And this talks about California AB 1573. And it was passed May 31st of this year to help statewide goals of increasing biodiversity, conserving water, and urban greening. So basically, it has several tiers as we step into the future. And that helps nurseries keep up with the demand and change the plant palette. Architects change the plant palette. So starting off, this will require 25% native species for public and commercial landscaping by 2026. And then we step all the way up to 75% in 2035. This plan does it day one. You're up to 2035. And this could actually be an excellent example of how private landscaping gets done, and to our visitors, and show that we're trying to be more ecotourism,
I don't know what the
setting.
rest of the commission thinks, but I sure feel like all three of these plans are they're all very much the same. Well, I think what Thomas Church was doing back in 1938 was creating what was here and wanting to make sure that was held here. And this, what I hear you talk about, and I think what we tried to put in place back in 22 was something that would represent our area. But I'm like this notion that we're really driving a plant population that is native to our area and allowing these pollinator pathways, is that what it was? Yeah, there's really some good stuff. I don't know who wrote that, but
it's
some good
great
stuff. I'm excited about it. I know directionally, I don't know where you guys are, but I think that we should support
You may want to open up for public comments
JC,
yeah.
before you decide or
Yeah.
JC,
narrow it down.
just to be
That's a
one
good point.
point,
Thanks.
the tam juniper is not native to here, it's native to Europe, Europe to Western Asia, Spain to Siberia. Just,
It's not, does it fit in the mold of a drought tolerant?
it'll grow anywhere,
Plant?
yes.
I don't even know where to get them. I mean,
The 70s.
yeah.
Got it.
Well,
Well,
now I'll go
but-
back in a time machine.
Before I open up to public comment, does anyone have any more questions? And sorry, I'm speaking out of turn in terms of just having discussion about it. Any questions about what Professor Allen has presented?
I just have a quick comment.
Mhm.
I love what she had to say. Sometimes when I'm strolling around on scenic, I see all the beautiful flowers and things that Carmel Cares has put out there, and I wonder what it is.
Mhm.
Have we ever thought about, and I know this is like an icing on the cake, just putting a little thing in the dirt, a little sign that says every now and again what the plant is, especially if it's a local native plant that someone might not recognize. I know there's an app out there. I do sometimes use the app,
Mhm.
but I just thought that might be a little nicety at some point.
Yes, for
Thank you.
educational purposes, and that I've done well here, and now I like to encourage the next generation of horticulturalists to do these things and getting interested in connection with plants. I've always wanted to do it with college or any of these with Forest Theater, but really having like QR codes that you could scan, and so here's the species, here's how it grows, where its range is, and here's the wildlife it supports.
Absolutely.
You know, and you can get that connect to the land and the natural setting of Carmel.
We're about to do that for us.
Oh,
We
okay.
just have to get everything.
Okay. That's exciting.
We're about to do that. Scenic is a little more difficult because we haven't started official planting and all that.
Right.
We have to get through this year, but yes,
Okay.
thanks for the question.
Absolutely.
So if there aren't any other questions for Alan, thank you for the presentation. I'll open it up to our dedicated followers here in the chambers for public comment. This could be our longest meeting on record. Not sure.
Hi, I'm Peter Quintanilla, and I was here mostly for the forest management plan, but since I saw Alan here, I wanted to give him a thumbs up because I've worked with Alan for many years throughout the peninsula, Big Sur, Carmel Valley, and really the work he does is really amazing. He knows his plants and he's knowing his trees, and all the projects we've worked on are always super good.
Thanks, Peter. Is there anyone online that, oh, sorry, Francisco.
Very briefly for Alan, what do you plan to do about diseased trees like the big pine oak and the cypress? What, I mean, you showed us the pine tree and also some cypresses that have, I mean, they're not in the best health conditions. So, any recommendations for those? Do you plan to remove them?
That's a discussion.
Okay, yeah, because those are big trees, so yeah.
Yeah.
So hopefully you won't need to remove them.
It's always about restoration of the health of the tree.
Okay, that was my question.
Thank you. Was there anyone online with their hands up, maybe? Do we have anybody online? Oh, yes. Hello there, Cindy. Oh, where'd she go? Oh, there she is. Perfect. Oh, did you put your hand down? Oh, hands back up. Oh,
You went back on mute.
now you're muted. Now you're not muted.
Hello?
There, Cindy?
You're up. And let's see, anybody else while we work through some technical difficulties? Ms. Lloyd, can you hear us? Why don't you turn your microphone on and off really fast? We'll know. It's like code. I don't think so. Where'd she go? She dropped in there.
By Morse code.
All right, well, there might be another opportunity to visit with us. I'm going to close this public comment piece.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I believe Cindy Lloyd submitted a written comment, an email.
Let's see.
Is it in the packet? So maybe that's part of her comment?
That's a lot of stuff. So I don't fit in my backpack.
Was it this two-page letter? No. No, that's not that.
I don't see her name on
Well,
it.
while we're looking, why don't we, we've been asked to provide some direction,
Yes.
some guidance to the city regarding the presentations that have been made. I know there were some comments specifically by me that I shouldn't have been making prior, but I'm going to reiterate them just briefly, just saying that I think that these three plans really do work together. They're all essentially saying the same thing. I love the idea of what people see down the middle is representative of what our area is. In fact, like that one picture that I saw that had like a bunch of like really colorful flowers at the end, I don't like that. I like much more of just the natural kind of flow of the color, and like I see over at the Forest Theater, it just looks like it happened naturally. And I would love to see that in these medians.
So that's a little different than what's proposed in item 2, where we want to go back to the 30s and have juniper under the existing tree structures. I just don't find that that's, really where we want to go. And I guess I'm kind of reaching to Bob on this too, because when we go back 6 months, I thought we'd kind of revisited this and it was let's go ahead and go. And then it just kind of died. I don't know whether that was because of Sarah leaving or just not getting approval from the city council or, them having objection. But I had thought, even back with item 1 when we had coming in with Dale after, doing that test on Monteverde and between Monteverde and Lincoln, that they came to us and said, we're good to go. Let's do this. Let's move on it. And then it just kind of fell away. And now we're back 5 months, 6 months later, revisiting an objection, I guess, or an addition from one of the council members on the city council about, 1930s look. And again, Dale's and Carmel Cares has now adjusted number 1 with a little more addition, not a heck of a lot. But, I think the question I have is, if we as a commission say, this looks great, let's do it, what does that mean for purposes of moving ahead?
Great question. The intent was to proceed with the pilot project for the remaining 4 islands. We never had fully funded, but I think we did have a little bit of momentum with Island 2. And then there was a lot of reasons why it didn't proceed. Is this Cindy Lloyd's? Yeah. So Cindy had a letter. Basically, she's supporting the option of Ellen Weed, I believe, right? Right?
Yep.
Okay. So there was a lot of reasons, some that cannot be stated on TV, why that didn't proceed, but the intent was to proceed with hopefully the first 3. That you're correct, that never happened. In the interim, there was some initial talk quite a few months ago with Carmel Cares about amending that, and then more recently we got a third option.
Right.
So it was kind of put on hold for a few months, most recently, but there was prior reasons why the original design. That said, so if the commission selects any of the options today. We do have a new funding source in the current fiscal year budget, $25,000 for beautification.
Yeah.
This totally qualifies for that. So we do have some money, whether or not it might not cover all of it.
And we do have the existing irrigation supplies.
We have the irrigation, right, right. So it depends on what option you select. If you select option 3, we're not ready to execute the plan yet. I think we would still need to go through the planning review process. This might need to go to the city council for a blessing, but I don't think if the commission supports it, I think it would be I guess would be pretty straightforward, but I'm not, I'm not on council. So there's a couple more administrative steps to take before we can execute. But again, right now, we're on hold pending which direction the commission wants us to proceed. Then we'll go from there.
I just wanted to be, for clarity, I wasn't suggesting that I liked and wanted to go for what was done back in the 30s. I just was suggesting that the spirit of what was done back then was something I appreciate, and I feel like what I'm hearing today is something that's the modern version of that. And so
I was just trying to clarify what
yeah,
we're.
well, no, that's good.
What are we supposed to, what is our direction?
I think it'd be cool to park our cars back in the middle of the meeting. I think those pictures aren't real.
We do need more parking.
Exactly.
So do we need a motion for purposes of this, Bob, or no, or is it just a recommendation?
It's not a motion.
or-
It's just,
It's not a motion. I believe providing direction to staff at this time, and I think that would be sufficient to get the ball rolling again on this. But again, there might be some additional, it might require city council approval. I do not know for sure.
I mean, I'm all for moving ahead with what Alan has presented in the way of the idea of moving forward with the medians.
Is that a motion?
That's well, if it's a
We're not
motion,
making
it's a.
Oh, it's a
If
discussion.
my fellow,
Oh, it's not, you're right, you're
if my
right.
fellow commissioners agree with that, I think we're just all kind of holding hands and saying,
Well,
let's go forward.
I'm missing some sleep now, so.
I totally agree, Brian, with what you're saying. I thought the presentation was fantastic. I really appreciate and I love the horticultural leadership. I feel like when we had our first committee meeting on the Urban Forest Master Plan, that some of that was missing. You know, we had a lot of inventory data presented, which I think is essential to our understanding of what we do now. You have to know that where you are before you can figure out where you want to go. But I think we really need the tree and the horticultural leadership as we make choices about how we move forward. And I loved how you integrate that into your presentation. I love the pollinator. I could envision the school kids, walking from the Forest Theater to the beach, following your pollinator pathway. I think it's something that the town could use to share with visitors, that we're taking a leadership in sustainability of using natives. So
I think too, I think just for purposes of getting a little bit of a vision on it is to go to the Forest Theater and look at what's been done to date. It's definitely heading in a really beautiful direction, but that's a good view into maybe what the medians will look like, or heading that way in the future.
I've heard 3 that are supporting the number 3, there's a fine, and it looks like it's all 5. I guess you've got your direction.
There you go, Bob.
awesome.
You got it.
You asked for it, you
5
got
for
it.
3.
That's good.
7:20, hey, we only have
Rock and
about
roll.
5 more things to discuss.
We're near the end.
This is the end. Here we go. Let's see where we are. Okay, well, up next, let's see, in our orders of business, the commission discussion of the findings and priorities regarding the beach infrastructure tour of inspection conducted on July 20th, 2023. And who's going to lead that?
I will simply kick it off, just kind of recapping what it says on the document. So if you recall, back in March, that same group that talked today about the tides and the sand and all that provided that shoreline infrastructure condition assessment report. At the July 20th special Forest and Beach meeting, you went on a beach infrastructure tour while I was recovering from medical issues, and then during the tour, you looked at the condition of the defective, damaged, whatever, seawalls, revetments, beach areas that needed repair, came up with some preliminary ideas for prioritization. And then more recently, Commissioner Sowers and Chair Myers asked that we put an item on the agenda, which it is, for commission discussion. And I know Commissioner Sowers and I talked about this morning. It's just a discussion topic. Staff doesn't really have any presentation. We can certainly help answer any questions, but there's not a lot of information, other than, it mentions in the fiscal impact, the city council did appropriate $250,000 as a capital improvement project to launch the design effort, to get the design going. This is a multi-million-dollar project. $250,000 just to get this started. One of the things, important aspects of the 250 is for a coastal engineering firm, not the sort of the firm that we talked to come up with accurate cost estimates and also confirmation of the prioritization. If you remember, the Hara Kasunis report said high priority, medium priority, low priority. Okay, now take that, drill that down. Even if it's a low priority, I don't know. Just we really need to fine tune that. Is it low priority number 8 of 8, or is it number 6 of 8? So we need to assess it a little bit further from an engineer with cost estimates. We need some information more on what coastal development permits, what coastal commission approvals. There's some unknowns there. So we're at the starting point. We're at a starting point of a long-range program to make those repairs. That's all that's the update. And
well, that's a good update. I think then the opportunity would be for us to share what we've witnessed and provide some input in terms of what we believe should be on your priority list, and understanding that there's a number of hurdles that you, meaning the department, has to go through to actually get these things executed, funding, et cetera, but that collectively we had a chance for all of us to look at these things and come up with an assessment of at least what we believe to be, let's go with high priority. And I'm going to hand it to you, Brian, to just quickly go through what I don't want to say is definitely everyone's opinion, but just
I'll give you I'm just bringing my meeting notes. You can concur whether that was
right. And I think that's
it. Conversation that we had at the beach.
I think that's the right way to do it.
Yes, I mean it's the kind of the discussion that we had on our tour. I think overall, Bob, I want to just I've talked with a few of the commissioners. I haven't talked with everyone, but I think again, Kelly and I've talked a little bit, and we talked about the fact that just from an overall basis, we felt that the report wasn't as well done as we would have hoped, and we don't know what was paid for that report, because I felt as we did our tour and kind of walked around, we felt there were parts of the report that didn't go in depth enough, maybe missed some things that we noted, and that might have been helpful even when they presented the report to have walked with city along the beach, or even with us in the city, to go through the report and make us feel like, wow, the amount of time and energy and money that we put out for this was coming back to us in the report. And I felt there was a bit of miss there. And we didn't really, again, I'm not technical enough to sit here and say, what the cost was for this, is it well done or not well done? I just felt that after looking at some of the stuff that was there, it wasn't as thorough as I would have hoped. So that's just an overall summary level. I think as we walked down the beach, I'll go from where we started. We started on the 4th Avenue stairs. There's some work that needs to be done there that I think just would make the stairways more safe. There's a missing guardrail. There was the conversation, which was really relevant to all of the stairways down, about the review of the hardware that's put this stuff together. We've got corrosion going on. Is the hardware sufficient enough for the safety? And it sounded, at least within the report, they weren't able to make that determination, that they felt that maybe we needed to get a corrosion expert in, just say, how much more time is this? Is it safe? Do we need to replace these or not? And again, there are certain ones that you can tell are kind of heavily eroded versus others that are just stained, and are they good, bad, or indifferent? I don't think we're talking about a huge cost to have someone come and give us that assessment. Moving down from the what was S11 as the stairway at 4th Street, we went to the dune, what they called the dunes outfall, which is the
S10 noted on the thing, which is the drainage for the water coming off of the 4th Street and down, and that whole concrete infrastructure at least was a high priority for them, that something needs to be done. Our major concern is that there are people that go down there and sit and picnic around that area, and it's structurally unsound, and whether we as a city could put signage out and tape around it or something that keeps, residents away from, if an earthquake or there was something going on where that structure fell, keep kids off from running up there. There's, rebar that's exposed. It's not structurally very sound, that we could put something up that alerts, tourist residents to stay away from this area. It's unsafe. And we felt that was something that would be helpful. Then moving down from there, we looked at the revetment where the water comes down at the Del Mar Parkway. Again, our question was, is this riprap safe? Is it plotted in a way that supports the water structure coming down off the Del Mar drainage, et cetera, et cetera. From there, we moved further down towards 8th Street, and we noted that at least the stairway at 8th Street, the riprap was exposed, and anyone coming down that stair, it was unsafe, right? And so we also, again, noted that at both the 9th and 10th stairways as well. And I know your team came down, thank you very much, and came down and got a tractor down there to move sand onto the 8th Street, but didn't really do anything at 9th and 10th, which still has the exposed riprap and is really not in a really very safe environment for people coming down those pathways to enter onto the beach. I think on the stairway at 9th, we also noted that when that stairway was constructed, I think the sand was much higher, so that the stairway would drop right into the sand. Now there's besides the riprap that's there, you've got like a 4-foot fall down, and whether we could bring the stairs down or at least cover up the rocks there. If we pushed a bunch of sand in there, maybe it would create a safer pathway down to the beach, even though ideally it would be, if we could put new stairway down that would reach that sand area, would be more helpful. But at a minimum, if we push sand up in there, I think it would create a safer environment for people to walk down onto the beach. Then we transitioned from and even looked at that stretch between 8th and 10th, where there really was very limited exposed riprap, and yet we had a very steep dune structure there, where if you go even up onto the scenic pathway, you can see that scenic pathway is moving its way towards the beach. There are two very nice cypress trees there that are embedded in that hillside, but it's a very steep hillside, and this is a whole area that's been heavily saturated, and whether it's tidal movement or it was part of that water challenge that we had coming from that construction that was going on there, that whole area there is completely saturated. And the question is, it hasn't really dried out, and I don't know whether that's tidal movement moving back in and just repopulates it with water, but the challenge is that between the saturation, the steepness of that slope there, and the lack of any revetment that we could possibly see, we felt, I don't know if my fellow commissioners, that is a very exposed area, that if we have more storms this coming winter, would be an area that if we could do something to support that structure, that would be an area I think that was of most concern. Again, moving from there, we moved south, looked at the other revetment that was moving from like 10th Street to 12th Street, concerns there as well. Again, it had some level of riprap that was there, but again, there was a lack of any exposure within the report. They were unclear about what revetments even buried there potentially, because the sand may not have scoured away enough to then get a viewpoint. My question to that was, because they say within the report that they reviewed planning for where revetment was laid out in previous years. We never saw that. We don't know. I'm just surprised that they didn't have any statement on that. If they'd reviewed all those previous reports about what was placed where, that they wouldn't have had any knowledge base about what's been laid there. So again, the concern would be, again, any revetment that's there, you know, what kind of shape it's in it, is it, what size of the rocks there. I mean, it's just that whole kind of structure there was challenged, but I think that area between 8th and 10th was more concerning. Moving down further, again, we had an issue with the stairs where I have to look at I think it's S8. Maybe it wasn't S8, I'm looking at my notes here. It was the stairs that, no, it was the stairways where we have a combination of rock, concrete revetment up, and then you go up and then it turns into wood. And that area has always been a concern for me, but if you look at it, and it wasn't represented in the report at all, the handrail is tilting to the ocean. It's pulling from the concrete. And I was always concerned because they were using, what are those called? Jacks underneath it to support the structure of the thing. Yet they didn't even bring it up in the report. So I was concerned that they didn't really look at the structural integrity of that wooden walkway. They kind of addressed the rock concrete, and that it had some spalling and some of its what's it called? What's the steel structure that was showing on it. So that was a concern, and they just mentioned in general that needed to be repaired. Looking at some of the seawalls too, we were noting cracks along the seawalls that weren't necessarily addressed in the report that could potentially be filled in with, I don't know, concrete or some kind of compound that would keep the cracks from expanding and maybe damaging the seawall. They also didn't address, you know, to some degree, any of the potential drainage coming from the seawalls and whether they're plugged or need to be unplugged, because if they get water behind them, that's going to force the pressure on the seawalls to push towards the ocean. And then in general, I think there was a statement in the report that it's concerning that some of the riprap that's there needs to be pulled out and then re-put back in for structural integrity. And I think that was true for for most of the riprap that's there, but there was a section down on the south end of the beach that had a smaller rock structure, and it was an area where a lot of tourists seemed to migrate and sit around, and kids play around on it. It had smaller rock, and it wasn't safe, and that was noted in the report that needed to be fixed as a high priority because they were concerned that rock would move and something could happen where it would fall on the beach or kids could be climbing on it and it would collapse. And then we ended at the Martin Way stairs, and those stairs need some fairly serious work on the handrails, and then again the structure around the corrosion around all of the
Wasn't there a little area there at 13th where the concrete, where the blocks were, that looked like some of those higher rocks were not solid?
We're not. Yeah, that was what I was talking about with you. But that was riprap that was smaller and was moving.
It's where it was actually cemented together or whatever they used.
Oh, that could be as well. I mean, I put that in there, and it was noted in the report, so it wasn't something to zoom in. It was a high priority.
Okay.
I think it's just we looked at it and just said, yeah, that looks to be of concern. So I think in general, I think we were in agreement with their high priorities. I think they may have missed some things that we were maybe, as I said, we're a little bit questioning about the report in general. But I think their points about the high priorities, I think we agreed with. The question is, how do we get at it? Is this something that we can do some kind of, hold hands as a commission to go to the city council and say, guys, we've got an emergency. I know that they've got an August 30 meeting to address their strategic plan,
Correct.
which addresses some of their budget priorities. And I mean, again, I talked with Karen Felita down at the beach a little bit. I'd come into one council meeting. Unfortunately, the youth center was kind of at the top of the agenda and said, hey, look, we have a report here that's, I'd ask for your, thought process on this and look at the report. And do you have any concerns? I think that kind of got buried with the youth center as an issue at that point. But I was hoping that whether it's us as a commission, how do you tell us, Bob, how do we get city council to get their head around this before this, even the August 30 meeting, I think is pretty important. If we wanted to have them think about, allocating some money, even just to replace some riprap or get some riprap down there, or if even that's a possibility. I mean, things like the safety signs and some of this other stuff that we're talking about, I think is pretty minimal. And I mean, you've got a tractor down there for the covering riprap with the sand, but moving new riprap down onto that beach is going to cost some money, and maybe a challenge because we don't have the platform to bring it down to the beach that we had, because it faded with the storms in January and February and hasn't been fixed.
Well, and could we potentially redirect some of that 250,000 to address some of these immediate needs that maybe we're better served by just getting bids, getting multiple bids to fix some of these things? That's going to tell us, rather than continuing a $250,000 study.
Because it may be that some of the contractors that do the riprap placement have engineering groups within, because some of them, they're going to get an engineer or put their own engineering report. They know how to do this. They know how to set the riprap in so that it's safe and that it's structurally integrity. I don't know from a city standpoint that you've got to go pay someone to do all the engineering and then bring it to a contractor who has their own engineering, and they're going to take that report and probably throw it. And they're going to do it the way they know to do it because they've been doing this for years. But I just don't know. I don't know the process of that and what the legal requirements are of that.
Haven't you worked with someone?
We're going to open it up to public comment in a minute. Okay. I mean, I think that for me, like, without, like, the biggest takeaway for me was the safety for entry and exit to the beach.
Absolutely.
It's the biggest takeaway for me. It's very concerning, and that in my mind should be the #1 priority. And I don't think we need a lot of studies to figure out how to replace or repair stairways, right?
We just need to get bids, and maybe we have funding that could go towards that. Right?
Sure seems like that would be something that was put on the top of the list. That's from my perspective. So I know other comments here before we open it up to public comment, and I will do that. That's okay with you? Yeah, perfect. Sure. I'm going to open it up to public comment for our soldiers here in the chamber that are hanging out. If anyone has a few things to say, we're going to time you for sure, Dale.
Dale Byrne. I'll be fast. My wife wants me home. Couple things, and I talked about this at our last Friday meeting. And if you want to attend tomorrow, we can talk about it there. It's a public meeting. So I got a new volunteer on the pathway. I'll just keep it at that. She has tremendous experience in the construction industry and heavy equipment. In fact, her husband was working for Granite when he built in '85, when they rebuilt the pathway, so he knows everything about it. She had a contractor the next day without my permission come down there, and he does the kind of work that we're talking about, riprap, moving heavy stones, and he knows exactly what to do and how to do it. So I got a really good education, and it's all possible. It would take 2 weeks to redo the riprap and bring stones down for the area just north of it, the area we talked about. So I'm not saying that we should do that. I'm just saying that if you want to talk to somebody, he can talk to you, and he doesn't cost anything. So that's part of it. And I personally believe it needs to be done. That's an emergency situation just north of 11th. It's like this. We've been spending a lot of time. We're building a fence. I just spent a lot of Carmel Care's money to build the fence there. And it could go this year. It could go this year. We have a big storm.
Did he give you an estimate?
No, but it wasn't millions for sure.
Yeah, so
it was more in the hundreds of thousands, 500,000. He's still getting back. I just said, give me a swag, and he hasn't yet. But who knows? Who knows? I'm just saying it was interesting. And he could replace that riprap just south of 11th in like 4 days for very little money, because they're just moving rocks. He's got the equipment. Anyway, we can talk about it later. I forgot what the second thing was.
I think we need practical solutions to some of these.
Well, but it's city government. I mean, we try to do things in a more efficient way because we're a nonprofit and we're not the city, but there are some things, I've worked with Bob long enough, there are some things you just have to do. And so we can't sit here and say that it's easy, because it might not be, and it probably isn't. There's coastal commission, there's all kinds of things. But it's possible. it's possible to do physically. I had another thing. I'll sit down and I'll see if I can remember.
Anyone else from Chambers? It doesn't look like it. Doesn't look anyone online. I don't see any hands up. Closed for public comment. Okay. Well, guess what time it is? No, it's time for the Public Works Director report.
Oh, so I don't need to respond to anything?
You don't have to. I didn't think you really, I mean, you can if you'd like.
No.
Good. I just
Should we
thought,
go, do you have a recommendation on how we put this part of,
This is important too, because you mentioned the stairways.
okay,
So one of our volunteers is Tim Mallory, and he built those stairways for $95,000 in 1987 in 2 months. He has been badgering me for a long time that he knows how to repair them and how to do it efficiently and cheaply, and he would love to have a conversation with Bob or Chip or anybody else, but he hasn't been able to get an audience. So I would suggest
he
that
know about
somebody
these
have an
meetings?
audience with him, because he might not be around forever, and he's willing to do it.
Just to me.
So if you want, I can set up that meeting.
We'll talk
There-
tomorrow.
Especially some quick things. Yeah. All right, thank you.
so,
Thanks, Dale.
Okay.
sorry, if you care.
Okay,
to
Mr. Chair,
respond.
yeah, there's a lot here. Let me, I don't want to sound defensive. I'm going to try to provide some input, some background. The report that was done by Harika Sunich was never, it was a macro level, big picture, 30,000 foot, because before we didn't know how many revetments we had. We didn't know which one. And it sounded like they were fairly accurate what the priorities were. It was never the intent for them to drill down to this ladder, which is good, the beach tour, this report, what you stated, Commissioner Sowers. This is good. This is micro level stuff. Very good. There's probably more to come, but this is a hell of a good start. So the report might not have been perfect, but it was never intended to drill down to this level of detail, which is why it kind of ties into the $250,000. That was to drill down to the level of detail, so we have cost estimates, we have solutions, we have refined priorities based on that study, based on your input, and based on their own observations, okay? The 4th Avenue wall with the drainage, I've been here 6 years, I've known about it for 6 years. It is on the 5-year CIP, I think it's in year 2 now. So it was way out, it's coming up. It's a big ticket item. Yes, it's in terrible condition. When I presented to the capital improvement plan to the city council back in March and April or whenever that was, April, May, made it loud and clear that we had just presented that report to the Forest and Beach Commission. Had a little box, 6 revetments, 4 are bad, 11 beach stairs, 9 are bad, or whatever it was. Okay? I made that loud and clear to them. We got $250,000. I told them I don't have an exact cost estimate, but this is it's obviously going to be multi-year. This is millions of dollars. That's what we got. We got $250,000. It is appropriate on August the 30th. That's what the whole strategic planning workshop. They encourage public comment. That's a good time. Go in there and say, hey, maybe not this level of detail because you might only have 3 minutes. But certainly there's concerns on, out at the beach, and we need to address them. There was some things that were stated. I tried to take some good notes. The immediate safety things, that kids crawling up on the rocks and the rock's going to fall and crush them, that concerns me. I'm responsible for public safety on the public parks and beaches and stuff. We'll do the best we can, but this is a full gamut of things. We don't have the resources. We don't have the funding. So we're not even close. So
No.
we have a tidal wave of a problem. I have a cup. A tidal wave of a problem. I have a cup. Beach exit stairs. Yes. A lot of this. The stairs have been being repaired since that gentleman built them in the 70s. We've had a report about the Gravy structural engineering report from, 15 years ago. We fixed all the main things. And I think I might have mentioned this before. They need to be rebuilt. Yes, we can fix the, the corrosion on the handrail. Yes, we can fix the one stairs. We can remove the jack. One of our volunteers. We can do the little things. And then we'll continue to limp it along. I told the city council it's time to get serious and do some rebuild. We have to be careful, because I know Mary's here and she knows the Coastal Commission pretty well. If we rebuild it in kind, we have a much better, a much faster turnaround than if we have a whole new design. Say, hey, we want to make this completely different, with circular circuit, whatever. We're going to be there for a long time before we built anything. So I think the intent is to rebuild it in kind, similar, style, but solid. These things, I mean, we can only make a car with 400,000 miles. It ain't going much further. What else do I have? Oh, and then some of the stairs were damaged, especially at the lower parts, 4th Avenue stairs, from the storms. We spent untold number of hours working with FEMA. We told them, we gave them invoices for hundreds of thousands of dollars, trees, beach access stairs, the pathway on San Antonio where the fence stuff fell over, Mission Trail, flooding, all kinds of stuff. I believe of the $190,000 of invoices we sent, we're getting a check for $3,000, which doesn't cover even anywhere close staff time to go after it.
That's a lot.
Okay, so that's the federal government's assistance. Have to be careful what I say on TV. Okay, so that's really, again, to kind of recap, yes, we knew about some of these things. We have a long ways to go. If the city council declared an emergency, boy, we can't bypass state law, but it does allow us to contract things faster. It doesn't mean we have the regulatory approvals to do so. But if we do it the traditional way, every one of these jobs is a public works project that requires state law, or state public works contracting code, plans and specs, public bidding, award contracts, get bonds, blah, 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 months and months and months and months and months and months.
If you would declare emergency, does that somewhat go away?
Yes. The short answer is yes. Not entirely, but for example, the contractor still have to pay prevailing wages, but we might not have to get 3 bids. We might, might be a little boom. Hey, buddy, go out there tomorrow. Okay.
But that's something that council has to.
The council would have to make it. Well, and this is just a workshop, so they couldn't make any final decision there.
The 30th.
On the 30th, hey, give them input, and then the next council meeting or whatever, they can say, we now declare an emergency on our beach, if they choose to do so.
Okay, well, thank you very much for allowing us to have this discussion, and we will move on in our orders of business to the Public Works Director's report for July 2023, including the Forestry Division report. And we're going to put a timer on it, okay.
Yeah, the chair kind of told me I don't have any time whatsoever on this, so I will. I felt it.
Quick highlights, Bob.
I felt this big. I will talk as fast as I possibly can. I hope you can hear it as fast as I can. If I may, Mr. Chair, I'm going to combine June and July into one so that we don't have to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Okay?
Yes.
So let's talk about city council actions related to forestry, parks, and beach items. Big item, August the 1st. Last week, the city council awarded a contract to Bowen Engineering for $139,000 for the Mission Trail Nature Preserve to remove the 10,000-gallon water tank, the pump house, the power pole, and to decommission the well. Okay? At the July council meeting, council adopted a resolution with fees for services citywide, mostly planning, building permits and stuff. A couple of changes with trees. A tree pruning permit was $255. It will continue to be $255. A tree removal permit was $340. It's now going up to $665. an appeal to the Forest and Beach Commission, or an appeal to, Forest and Beach Commission appeal to the City Council was $1,485. It's going up to $1,800. And then this last one is a new fee. The fee was rejected 3 years ago when it came up to council at the time. A tree evaluation permit, this is important. Many, 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 many times, people come in the door or they call the city forester, and they always use the word just. Mr. Forester, or Madam Forester, could you please just take a look at my tree? It's in the back, it will take you a minute. Okay? So we've been doing that service. It's not just, you have to log it in, you have to check any prior records, you have to go to the site, you have to figure out where to park, you have to meet with the person, go in the backyard, assess the tree, come back, write it up, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so now the council has agreed to have a new fee of $195. If they do this tree evaluation permit, and Justin goes out and says, you know, the tree's healthy, maybe it's done. Hey, you know what? Apply for a tree removal permit, that $195 would be credited towards the upgraded, $195 for the evaluation, and the removal would be $665. So they get the first $200 is already factored in. So that was a biggie.
Now that was doubled it. That was doubled it on the removal.
And quite frankly, all of those numbers I told you about were discounted by council because they're of the concern to keep the health of the forest, you know, as healthy as possible, and encourage people to come in and get permits instead of not getting so. I'm not going fast enough. July 11th, council awarded a two-year professional service agreement to Denise Duffy and Associates out of Monterey to do the North Dunes habitat restoration, as well as other on-call environmental services for $111,000.
So Bob, how does something like that get approved? I'm just curious over like the safety of repairing stairs, like your comment about, you know, entering and exiting the beach. Right, you said you have a cup. I'm just trying to figure out how to make your cup. I'm trying to figure out how to make your cup a little bigger,
The little
right?
the tin cup.
Yeah.
The tin cup.
I'm not saying I'm not opposed to this. I'm just saying, you know, that's the.
All right, so every year, okay, good.
Yeah.
The city council adopts a capital improvement program. I think this year we had 41 projects. A lot of them are lumped together. All different things. City Hall roof replacement, painting Sunset Center, North Dunes, trees at Mission Trails, the tank, drainage at Mission Trails, all kinds of different things citywide. So our job as staff is to implement, working on all 41. Some are moving faster than others. But all 41 have been assigned and are now funded, and we're working on it. So that was just one of them. One project is the $250,000. So, and we are working on it. But we don't have bulldozers to go out there and move rocks all right away. Okay, that was.
You get double overtime after 8.
She's going to take off all next week and say, you remember how late I worked that? Forestry Division report. We already heard a lot.
Quickly, like, so for instance, that adopted that resolution 2023-072, right, which is this removal of all this, oh no, that's the wrong one, which is the one that's the big huge tank that's coming out of Mission Trails.
It's
Exactly,
not on here
it's been there for
in
years,
August.
and it's not hurting anybody, right? So,
No, but it was a priority for council for years.
well, I understand, but I mean,
It's actually a danger because it
It
can
is-
fall
it is-
over
it's-
if kids were playing on it.
Right, and the well itself is a liability of the city. So, yes, all the projects are important.
okay,
The City Hall roof leaks.
well, that's fine.
It's not going to be anybody. Wear your raincoat.
I get it as many.
I got a lot of leaks in my house.
We get as many done as we can. Okay, Forestry Division report. We talked a lot about forestry already. Just a couple other things that were not yet mentioned. Town and Country is our on-call landscape maintenance contractor. So last month, they were issued 30 task orders for about $125,000 of the $175 they have budgeted for a wide range of landscaping maintenance services throughout the city for the entire fiscal year. Last year, we were doing mow the yard once. Now we're doing something all year long, doing it more mass production. Last month, this different topic, the city purchased our first stump grinder in the history of the city. So we assembled it, we had some training. So we're not doing huge, gigantic stumps, we still have to contract those out, but a lot of the mid-sized little stumps. So we've been doing that. So we've been out there, I think last week or two, we did a few stumps downtown. We ground it out with our own stump grinder, made a hole, plunked in a new tree. A whole lot more efficient than waiting for contractors to remove the stump. So progress. Our forestry crews participated in aerial rescue training on July 7th, which Justin was participated in that. We had 3 guys go to Treetopia last weekend. It's a 2 or 3 day conference.
Yeah, it's actually ended up only being 2 guys because Eric's had to stay home with his dying dog.
Good, I hope he pays us back for the registration.
But he talked. But two guys went and
I
they.
need money in the cup.
But the guys went and they said they got a lot out of it. Like it's a really hands-on tree workshop up in the Bay Area. It's really awesome.
Okay.
Sorry.
We can talk about that later. Okay.
Hey, I saw
that out
the
of
new
the minutes.
electric street sweeper down at on Scenic. Wow.
You don't hear it, you just see it.
I know, you don't hear it. It's pretty cool. You don't even hear it. It's like, what is that thing doing?
We cleared the weeds around Flinders Mansion and mowed Martin Meadow to reduce fire fuel hazard. That's a big sensitive topic to the neighbors. Tom and Louise and Justin are working on, we're still working on claims from trees that fell and allegedly damaged private property. There's dozens of them, so that takes up a lot of time. And last for forestry, this is hot off the press, PG&E is going to be removing 6 trees. Most of them are dead or hazardous to the power lines. Justin went out there and he concurred that these are either hazardous or dead. So you'll be seeing, and it's all over town, it's not in one particular area. So the next 2-3 months, we'll be seeing PG&E and their contractors remove 6 trees.
Okay.
It's more coordinated this time. If you remember, a year and a half or 2 years ago, there was an incident.
Busy
PG&E's just kind of
Cutting trees down.
started cutting trees down and not telling
They work
us.
directly with the forester and no more going cutting away, right?
Yeah, so a little bit better.
We had a meeting with them this week and we got on the same page, hopefully. And they're gonna give us trees to review and then we'll all go out, look at them and post notices with the number, those little yellow placards saying this tree's gonna be proposed for removal by PG&E, call 1-800-PG-5000. So at least the people know if trees disappear or they start getting cut down, why or when, so.
Okay, on the climate committee, kind of a little bit touch base on this. Okay, back up. The coastal engineering study, we heard task 2 today. So Mary and I and our consultants, we met with the Coastal Commission this morning, in fact. We're going after a $500,000 non-competitive, which is great. It's called an LCP grant. This will fund phase 2. All more planning. They talked about the data they're collecting now kind of ties into phase 2. Phase 1 we paid for was $175,000 city funds. Phase 2 is $400,000. It's all going to come out of the Coastal Commission, plus some money for reimbursed staff time or whatever.
Oh, the people who presented tonight, their next work is $400,000?
They will get an amendment to their agreement for $418,000 to do a whole lot more studies to keep that going. I asked the question, I get a pat on the back, can any of this money go to fix revetments, fugitive rocks?
You're talking about the Coastal Commission.
Coastal Commission this morning. They have $500,000, they want to, don't even have to compete, just fill in the form. We did, that's something to do. Can we spend any money to fix revetments, fix the stairs, fix anything? No, essentially no.
It's just study money.
study money.
So the 250,000 that the city
That-
approved for
that's-
study money?
that's city money, yes.
Okay, so we can use that to fix some
Yes,
things if you just
yes.
found 400,000.
Extra, for something else, but it's related. It's related.
We don't need $650,000 of studies on
We-
how to help the beach.
No, it's not all beach, but,
It's more than the beach.
It's more than the beach, but.
Mary, you want to bail me out on this a little bit? Yeah, why do we need $600,000?
Program amendment, that's what that 500,000 from the Coastal Commission grant is for.
So maybe briefly, what are the other tasks that they're going to be doing?
They are, it's more planning work in order to take the information we had from phase one, and then we have to actually implement the work with the Coastal Commission to come up with a long-term adaptation plan. So that's what, it's still planning money, but it's review of documents, it's, putting the whole thing together and getting approval from the Coastal Commission for this long-term plan.
Right. And not to cause panic or fear, but in that long-range plan, we may find additional things that are not on that initial report. Gosh, we have to relocate the Del Mar parking lot.
I don't think
Gosh,
so.
we-
I mean, what they said today is that everything's stable, right?
Well-
They said the
here.
sand,
I mean,
sand is stable.
it's very,
You said it's not stable.
no, I'm just saying, I'm concerned because
Right.
The sand replenishment is stable. That's what
Sorry,
they said.
we're correct.
That was the basic.
Not up on the
But we don't have the full, we know a little bit about these critical shoreline infrastructure. We don't know all of the impacts of climate change in the long term.
Right, right.
That's what this is.
That's the next phase.
So it's gonna keep on going.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, enough planning. I won't bore you with the next one. And then volunteer organization, a couple of things. I think you've probably all seen it, the Scenic Pathway Guardrail Project.
Great.
Looks great. It's more than half done, 2/3 done. One thing I wanted to clarify, it was never the intent for this phase to do all of it. A couple of people said, you missed a spot. No. We're doing the spots that were missing, that were falling over, laid on the ground, or that were completely deteriorated.
It looks great.
Okay, but it looks great. Beach cleanup, so we worked out a schedule with Carmel Cares. So Town and Country's our landscape maintenance contractor, they're cleaning the beach Monday mornings. Carmel Cares cleans the beach Wednesday mornings, and sometimes we provide a public works person on our little ATV to help. And Friday mornings, Public Works cleans up the beach. So it's like 3 cleanup per week. Busy holiday weekends or whatever, we supplement that on weekends and whatnot. But so anyway, we have a better routine schedule now to clean up the beach. And my understanding is that we're getting more. Looks better?
Yes.
It's a lot better.
Almost done? Hang in there.
Oh, that red light's been blinking for a while.
I don't know. The median minder, Carmel Cares' median minders program, they report they have more volunteers now than ever, so it's still expanding. The median minders, the people who live nearby, they adopt the median, they maintain it. Great program, great community engagement program, and it gets a lot of medians looking good. I guess back in June, along Carmel, they had the marquee signs and the new signs that say "Keep Carmel Beach Clean" with the little trash thing. So they did that recently. They cleared out the hillside along the Lincoln Street Trestle Bridge. That hillside was very much overgrown, and it's all cleaned up. Okay, that's it for volunteers. Miscellaneous. Scenic restroom doors, the mahogany doors that they expand when it gets hot and they contract when it gets cold, or vice versa, I don't know. They kept getting jammed the whole time, ever since they were built. What's that?
I said they expanded too much.
Expanded too much. They would get stuck, people would get stuck and call the police to get them out of there. So we had our contractor, they modified the jams, they modified the doors, and we added a new closer. So those are better.
Oh, good, that's a good thing.
That is a good thing.
that require all the state laws and 3 bids and all that kind of thing to repair those restroom doors?
Certain state laws, yes. It didn't, it was under 5,000, and they're purchasing orders under $5,000, we could do things,
Oh, okay.
okay? As Commissioner Sowers mentioned, we rented a Bobcat last month or so. The exposed rocks at 8th Avenue, apparently we missed 9th and 10th or something. Find out more about that. And because this commission kind of oversees the parks, we painted the restrooms in Lower Forest Hill Park, Upper Forest Hill Park, and Devondorf Park. So they look a whole lot better. And that completes my report. Open up for any public comment.
Any questions from the commission first, before we open up to public comment?
Just one thing, Bob, I know we talked about potentially getting Brandon to respond on the issues around the Coastal Commission, and you said Mary might be able to respond to some of that.
Mary, could you come back? What kind of permits do we need for these shoreline infrastructure repairs?
Oh, boy.
I'll be brief. In the municipal code, it's on our city website, and it's under like 17.52. So there are definitions of what's excluded from our coastal development requirements. Because our beach and area is an environmentally sensitive habitat area as determined by the California Coastal Commission, it's very particular in what is allowed for moving sand, moving rocks, moving any kind of revetments, any rocks in the revetments. It's very, very particular about what's permitted and what is not. And a lot of the information depends on if you're replacing it in kind, or if, it's just very specific about what is an emergency permit, what is for health and safety. So it goes through a very long list of what's excluded and what's not in a coastal development permit. So there's emergency permit circumstances, there's all kinds of information in our municipal code that lays all that out, and it's kind of directed by the planning department.
Our city planning department
Right.
can issue that CDP to whoever's doing whatever work, whether
For
it's public
certain
works.
things, and other things have to be approved by the coastal commission.
And is that in the code that you
Yeah.
can read it in? And
Yep.
Is it on the website?
Yep, it's on the website, 1752 100.
1752?
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Maria, have her hand up?
Well, let's see, if we don't have any other questions, I'll open it up for public comment. And is there anyone here in chambers? I see Maria, you have your hand up, patiently waiting. Oh. She's going to speak.
And I'll be quick too. I just had a question on the totals of number of trees required for replanting. What is someone monitoring those trees that are replanted and double checking that they live, say, beyond 3 to 5 years? Do you know what the process is internally?
Maria, this is Bob. Are you referring to, as a condition of a permit, if they remove a tree, they have to plant a tree? Are we following up at 6 months to a year, 3 years, 5 years? Is that the question?
Correct.
Tom?
Thank you. Great question. Justin and I feel free to take this, but we were just discussing the other day, in the previous I believe it's been almost 2 years since midway through COVID, I think, was about the last time that our forestry division had gone out individually to properties to be able to verify whether the replantings actually happened. At a council meeting recently, they had said we fully agree, we need to get back on track. We know exactly what permits were issued since the date of the last check. I believe that council had suggested a check 1 year later and then either 4 or 5 years later. I have it written down, can't remember exactly. But the municipal code itself actually says how often we need to go back and check. It's around those same parameters, but we are going to implement that. No, we have not checked in the past year or two. It'd probably be wise of us to send out an email to, each approved permit application has email addresses. We should probably send out some type of mass email. Hey, we're going to be scheduling these. We have the locations of the tree. We're going to come out and make sure that it's healthy, and if not, discuss replanting and next steps. So we will fulfill both our municipal obligation and council's directives to check up on that. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but it will happen soon, and we will make sure that we follow through with those.
Right. And if I may, Maria, the prior city forester, I guess it was during COVID, when she went out to look, there was a pretty high success rate. Not everyone complied with their requirement to plant, but it was pretty high. I don't remember the percent, 80, 90% of people were complying and installing their trees.
Okay, let's see, any other public? It doesn't look like it. I'm going to close public comments then and move on to future agenda items.
Right. What's for breakfast?
Doesn't look like there's any future agenda items, and with that, at 8:14,
Yep.
meeting's adjourned.
Wow.